Frequently referred to as the most democratic game in the world, cricket had its first beginnings on the village greens of southern England. The first organised matches between neighbouring communities were played around the middle of the 18th century. Except for tactics and improved skill arising from better wickets, the game has undergone little change. Cricket became such a part of the British character that wherever Britons settled overseas, they took their bat and ball with them. In the West Indies, cricket found a welcome home. There, as in England, it quickly became the game of the people. Under the more certain sun of the Caribbean, wickets are pitched everywhere and everyone plays the game. As a child, Collie Smith played in Boys Town in Kingston, Jamaica, and after his tragic death, the street was named after him. But like all Jamaican cricketers, he first saw greatness at Sabina Park. The match in progress is the last of the West Indies Interterritorial series, and in reply to Jamaica's first innings total of 193, Barbados are 295 for 3. Cohen, the young fast bowler, is doing everything to win a place in the West Indies side. Nurse, the seasoned batsman, needing only 7 for his century, presents no problem to the selectors. Never wavering in his concentration, Nurse steers the ball off his legs to reach his 100. A good omen for the forthcoming Test series. .329 for 3, and the ever-hopeful Cohen pounds up to the crease to bowl to Lashley, the left-hander. With 61 stylish runs so far, he's another strong contender for the touring side to be led by Sobers. With the temperature rising towards 90, the water trolley is brought frequently onto the pitch. The thirsty wicket begins to show signs of wear, and at 355 for 3, Hendricks brings back Levy with his flighted off-spinners. But Lashley's carefully placed leg glide that reaches the boundary is worth 4 more runs, and it begins to look like a match between Jamaica and the West Indies. For a while, Levy's slower deliveries are cracked smartly into the covers. With 126 to his credit, Nurse put up a catch to Headley, and next man in was Branca. 4 more runs wanted to take the total to 400, and there they are. What an embarrassing wealth of talent for consideration by Sir Frank Worrell, Jerry Gomez, John Goddard, Alan Ray, and Barclay Gaskin. At 421 for 4, Sobers declared. To save an innings defeat, Jamaica needed 228, and an hour and a half after play was resumed, Teddy Griffiths had gone for 15 and Ron Headley without scoring, both clean bowled by Garry Sobers. At 62 for 2, McMorris had 34 and Foster 9. Always a borderline case for the selectors, McMorris treats Sobers with every respect. But it was Holford, the leg spinner visiting Sabina Park for the first time, who dismissed the Jamaican opener for 40. A partnership by Harvey and Foster yielded 103 runs in 91 minutes, before Foster was out for a fine 71. On the last morning, the great but controversial fast bowler Charlie Griffith found the pitch very lively indeed. After being struck on the knee, Harvey was obliged to have a runner. Meanwhile, selection goes on. With only 8 more runs to his overnight score, Harvey was eventually caught behind the wicket off Sobers for a valuable 59. A crucial moment for Jackie Hendricks, whose only hope to avoid defeat was to play out time. Bennett went without further score, but in true West Indies style, Hendricks chose to go for runs. Unfortunately, a bouncer from Griffith put Levy temporarily out of the game. However, in spite of the hostile bowling, the skipper progressed to 30 and Barnett to 25. Jamaica passed the Barbados total with 227 for 7 and finished their innings 33 runs ahead of the champions. Newly selected for the England tour, Cohen celebrated by taking 3 wickets before Barbados could call the game theirs. So much for competition. Now to examine the skills and tactics of lovely cricket as seen within the context of a scripted game. Garry Sobers wins the toss and chooses to bat first on a good-looking wicket. The batsman's pads are comfortably buckled on the outside. The straps are tucked out of the way, and no self-respecting player goes to the wicket without gloves that will afford maximum protection. In dazzling sunshine, a cap, too, is worthwhile. In consultation with Barnett, Valentine, the captain, decides that his opener will bowl with the wind. The aim of the outswinger is to move the ball from the wicket to the offside. For this demonstration match, the teams have agreed to change their identities, so today Hunt and Nurse bat for Jamaica. Hunt asks for a middle and leg guard against the away swing bowler, who meanwhile loosens up and checks his run. For the outswinger, the ball is gripped with the index and second finger at either side of the seam, so that the thumb lies directly on the stitching at the other side. The grip, combined with the arm action, causes the ball to veer away from the batsman. Direction starts with a high arm action that finishes with the bowling arm swinging across the body and down past the left thigh. A check mark here for the rear foot and a final pacing of the run-up. The umpire checks Conrad Hunt's middle and leg guard, and for future reference the batsman makes a mark with his foot and takes a look at the field before facing the bowler. In adopting a comfortable stance, his feet are parallel on either side of the crease. With the bat resting on the inside of the thigh, he grips the middle of the handle so that the index finger of the top hand touches the little finger of the bottom. The arm which faces the bowler is the working arm of the batsman and is responsible for both direction and power. The forward attacking shot is made with the front shoulder leading out to the pitch of the ball. It's backlift, a lean into the shot, and follow through. All the time, the left shoulder faces down the pitch and he looks directly at the bowler with both eyes. First over of the match then. The bowler to deliver the away swinger with a high arm action that comes down across the body. The batsman's foot goes right to the pitch of the ball and so keeps it on the ground. Well picked up in 2 hands and a throw straight into the wicketkeeper's hands above and over the wicket. To save the bowler's energy, the ball is returned by way of a convenient fielder. The alert captain brings the slips a shade closer with a view to a quick catch from a batsman who can be tempted with a ball on the offside. As he walks back, the bowler concentrates on his next delivery. The batsman notes the adjustment in the field before moving to the wicket. The orthodox stance, and he meets a straight ball with a broad forward defensive bat. No run is scored, and mid-on lobs the ball back straight to the bowler. As the bowler sees it, he needs to lure the batsman into a feeling of false security. A well-grounded bat is worth a couple of strides. A bit wide of his foot, but it's 4 runs nevertheless. A full toss encourages the batsman still further. Time perhaps for that outswinger with the tempting length, but the batsman sees the ball well and covers it. The batsmen are beginning to open their shoulders, and in typical style, Hunt cuts the ball down between point and cover. A batsman who's quick off the mark makes the most of his scoring power. Sweeping the ball off his legs, Nurse is immediately on the move. There's nothing more depressing to a fielding side than a batsman who looks for runs all the time. Now the bowler has the dual role of keeping the runs down and finding a chink in the batsman's armour. He was late, and he failed to come down onto the ball as it moved away to the off. Both the square and the late cut are played off the rear foot, which moves across to bring the bat behind the line of the ball. A spectacular wristy stroke to watch, but one that requires perfect timing. The keen attitude of fielders can increase the feeling of pressure on some batsmen. And that's the moment to strike. An edge from the outswinger and nurses out for 53, with Jamaica's score 88. With the known weaknesses of the incoming batsman in mind, the captain decides to bring on his leg spinner at the other end. Accordingly, the field is reset to save the boundaries and to position the players for any catches. The batsman makes a mental note of the new disposition and checks his guard before facing the new bowler. The leg break pitches more or less in line with the leg stump and then turns in the direction of the off stump. Held across the seam in the first, second and third fingers, with the thumb acting as support, the ball is spun anti-clockwise out of the back of the hand. As the arm comes over, the wrist is dropped and the third finger is ready to impart spin. To give additional spin and speed off the pitch, the ball is flipped out of the hand. The bowler is anxious to attack the incoming batsman before he becomes accustomed to the light and the state of the pitch, so it's worth giving a single away to bring him to the other end. A short run-up, a high arm action to flight the ball, and the batsman reaches out, but his rear foot doesn't leave the ground. Nevertheless, the bowler has satisfied himself that the batsman is uncertain, and wisely he pitches the next ball in a different place. The nervous batsman is too early and is caught at mid-off. At 89 for 2, the bowlers have regained the initiative, and now to face them is Garry Sobers, the world's best all-rounder. Both eyes look straight at the bowler as he plays a forward attacking shot. Forward into the shot, with the handle in advance of the blade and off into his run. For the late cut, the left foot brings the bat quickly across the line of the ball. From a different angle, he watches the ball right onto the bat. A firm grip with both hands gives added force to the shot. Head down, he moves right into the ball and immediately follows up. The shortish ball on the onside simply asks to be hooked for 4. The ball is given added force and yet kept down by turning the wrists over at the moment of impact. The confident batsman reaches the high-flighted ball with a couple of chassé steps down the wicket. The calculated risk is a catch or a stumping. His stance for the shot must be the same as it would be at the crease. Backward attacking or defensive shots are played off the rear foot, which moves across to the line of the ball. The chin is tucked in, the elbow points down the line of the ball, and the bat follows through. With a completely defensive shot off the back foot, there's no follow-through. However, as with the attacking shot, the handle of the bat is in advance of the blade at the moment of contact. Now, plus the follow-through that turns the defensive stroke into an attacking shot. Standing on a firm rear foot, the ball can be forced away to the boundary. From Garry Sobers' versatile and ever-attacking bat have come 31 runs out of a total of 157 for 2. A good captain is constantly looking for a means of breaking through. Valentine has noticed that one of the batsmen has a tendency to play outside the ball, an opportunity to try the in-swinger. This was the grip for the outswinger. For the in-swinger, the first and second fingers are held not parallel to the seam, but slightly across it. With the thumb underneath to complete the grip. The in-swinger is the ball that swerves into the batsman from the offside. The intention is either to bowl the batsman between bat and leg or get an inside edge for a catch on the leg side. To direct the delivery into the batsman, the arm is swung down and past the right thigh, and to give additional in-swing, the bowler usually bowls fairly wide of the wicket. In position for the expected catch are backward short leg and leg slip. And now, with a fair amount of lift in the pitch, the batsman is encouraged into a cramped stance, from which he has to hasten his stroke and spoon the ball into the waiting hands. A near thing, but not near enough. The leg glide is for the well-set batsman. Played off the front foot, he makes the ball into a half volley and strokes it off his leg by turning the blade towards the onside at the moment of contact. A fine adjustment in the field can make the difference between 4 runs and a wicket. Slightly more square, backward short leg is exactly right for the catch. And so Conrad Hunt goes with 65 runs out of a total of 161 for 3. Batting number 4 is Peter Lashley. With a good score on the board, Sobers indicates that they should go for the runs in order to afford maximum time to dismiss the opposition. Valentine, too, assesses the situation, and with Lashley in mind, he decides to adjust the field to take advantage of the young batsman's potential weaknesses. To the new and unsettled batsman, the bowler has a thought to vary the swing, hence 3 slips on the offside and 2 on the leg. To the left-hander, the in-swinger is, of course, an outswinger. Yes, runs for the batsman, but for the bowler, a chance for an edged ball to the slips. Time is a vital factor in the strategy of both captains. Valentine has to keep the runs down, whereas Sobers aims at a big score and sufficient time to win the match. Even so, Sobers can't afford to delay his declaration beyond 3/4 to 4, for the close in this one-day match is fixed at 6:15. To declare now means that the game remains open, and it's up to Valentine to show the same sporting spirit in chasing the runs. Valentine's immediate consideration is the state of the wicket. He needs runs, and a crumbling pitch would be fatal. So far, the surface has held, so he's satisfied to smooth it over with a light roller. A heavy roller on a hard, worn wicket can easily disturb the foundation, whereas the light roller affects only the surface. It looks as though there are plenty of runs in the pitch and the weather set fair. Barbados have to go for the runs, and Sobers hopes that Hunt's slower ones will tempt the openers to risk their wickets. He bowls to a well-packed field on the offside that can deal with a snick into the slips or a lofted ball into the outfield. A captain is always on duty. Not for one moment can he afford his concentration to waver. The balance of the game alters with every ball and every run. The slightest incident missed can be an opportunity lost. A slovenly runner should be noted and his laziness exploited. He's run out, not by accident, but by design. A breakthrough for the team we have called Jamaica. But there's no respite, for time is pressing and a draw is not popular with either spectators or cricketers in the West Indies. With the batsman going for the runs, Sobers decides to complicate the issue by bowling his famous mixed bag. To keep the run-seeking batsman guessing to the extent of anticipating spin and swing is a fine idea if it comes off, but it can be very expensive. How long a captain should persevere with any single tactic, only he can judge. Constantly he feeds information into his mind, and like a human computer he gets answers on which he must have the courage to act. The captain must be above the influence of criticism, make unbiased decisions, and above all, keep the respect of his team at all times. At 159 for 3, the game is tilted in favour of our Barbados side. With 45 minutes left for play, they need 43 to win. Sobers' only chance now is to get quick wickets, the kind of challenge enjoyed by most West Indian cricketers. Valentine's wasting no time. His batsmen are ready to get out into the middle as soon as they might be needed. For him it's runs, not wickets, that matter. He's not interested in a draw. Both captains have the kind of support for which they asked. Runs for Barbados and wickets for Jamaica. So, it's 4 runs to get, 1 wicket to fall and only 2 minutes to go. The captain now to make his personal contribution, and only 4 balls of what must be the last over in which to snatch victory. Equally determined on a wing is Garry Sobers with his world-famous googly. The fingers are widespread over the ball, which rests in the palm of the hand away from the batsman. The ball comes off the little finger and out of the back of the hand. In playing for a leg break, the batsman is likely to be bowled between hat and pad or even round his legs. A little over-pitched for a googly, and Valentine is off the mark for 1 run. Good running between them. The score moves on to 199. A very short one to hook that nearly gets an edge. 2 more balls to come. The duel between the captains has reached its climax, and as Sobers runs up to the wicket it looks like a draw, but Valentine is caught unawares by Sobers and his googly. And so ends our scripted match that demonstrated some of the skills and techniques of West Indies cricket, soon to be seen in the Test series against England. Although playing conditions must favour the English cricketers, the West Indians have a side of considerable experience. 12 of them have toured Britain before, 12 have played against Australia, and only 3 are newcomers to Test cricket. It's a side with the ability and spirit to emulate the great tourists of 1963. After a spectacular win in the first Test at Manchester by an innings and 40 runs, the West Indians came to Lord's, the traditional home of cricket, on a day that promised very little except the option to bat. Against Jones, the Glamorgan fast bowler, Hunt, the experienced Barbadian, made a somewhat uncertain start. On an easy wicket, runs came slowly, and facing Higgs, the Lancashire opener, Carew fared little better than Hunt. A diagonal run-up, a vigorous twist of the shoulders, and Higgs swung the ball to get Carew caught behind the wicket for 2. A good start for England, and in place of the left-handed Trinidadian, in came Canhigh, whose form so far had been disappointing. His established facility for placing the ball quickened the run rate, and his speed between the wickets made the most of his stylish shots. At this early stage, both Canhigh and Hunt looked fairly well set. But at 42, Canhigh edged a Higgs outswinger to Titmus in the slips, and into bat came Butcher. Then down came the rain. 4 hours later, an apprehensive Sobers examined the wicket and was against the resumption of play. However, the crowds who'd waited throughout the day were not to be disappointed. At 20 to 5, they were on the field again, with Knight of Essex bowling to Butcher. But it was Higgs who dismissed Hunt with a catch behind the wicket for 18 when the score stood at 53. However, the Butcher-Nurse partnership considerably improved the position of the West Indies. Apart from indecisive running between the wickets, their 66 runs in an hour, scored mainly off the back foot, were almost faultless. It looked as though these two exponents of West Indian cricket would carry their bats through to the next day. Then suddenly, and quite out of the context of play, Butcher mishooked a short ball into Milburn's hands at square leg, when only one short of his half-century. Sobers gave two early chances, one to Higgs and the other off Knight, but that was the end of it, for in cavalier fashion the captain moved into attack. And so, by the close of play, the West Indian score stood at the respectable total of 155 for 4. The first hour of the second day was much the same as the evening before. Run for run, Nurse and Sobers stroked the ball with fluent ease. Here was a display of batting at its very best against the accurate and intelligent bowling of the England attack. In turn, Higgs, Jones and Knight tried to dislodge the two great friends, but not till D'Oliveira took over with the score around 200 did the batsmen show any signs of discomfort. D'Oliveira to Nurse, not very sure of himself, and indeed the next delivery clean bowled him between bat and pad for 64 very valuable runs out of the West Indies score of 205. 8 runs later, Knight trapped Sobers leg before wicket, and so the balance swung back in England's favour. D'Oliveira persevered without further success, but serious cricket continued for only another hour. After Holford fell to Jones for 26, and Higgs had Allen caught in the slips by Titmus for 13, there was only the tail-enders to come. Griffith went for 5, Hall for 8, and Gibbs for 4. The West Indies total 269. A perfect wicket and a big welcome for England's openers Boycott and Milburn. Sobers took matters into his own hands, but Boycott wasn't to be tempted by short balls on the offside, not in the early stages at any rate. In contrast, Hall from the nursery end had Milburn guessing right from the start, and before Milburn could mend his ways, the light got worse. After the rain, Milburn went for 6 and Boycott for 60. The third day's play opened in brilliant sunshine. Barrington not out 8, and Graveney, his first test match for 3.5 years, 65. Sobers almost penetrated Graveney's guard, and in real menacing style, Griffith bowled all out to dislodge a very tentative Barrington. Indeed, Barrington never settled, and was clean bowled by Sobers for a mere 19. Now it was captain to face captain. Sobers was in such fine form that Cowdrey couldn't get him away. However, whilst Cowdrey laboured to no avail, Graveney, the 39-year-old veteran, scored freely all round the wicket to push his score on towards his century. It was Wesley Hall who finally removed the England captain, Gibbs catching him for a paltry 9 when the scoreboard read 198. Two runs later, and Graveney, anxious for his 100, is facing Hall. A fast outswinger, Graveney flashes at it, and he's caught behind the wicket for a magnificent 96, a superb return to Test cricket. With Graveney gone, back came Sobers to test D'Oliveira, a newcomer to international cricket. It was the turn of Worcester's South African player to show his ability, a chance which he accepted to the extent of a free-scoring partnership of 48 with Parkes that ended tragically for D'Oliveira with a run-out at 251. Parkes, who'd been lagging slightly behind, now took the initiative, and partnered in turn by Barry Knight, Fred Titmus and Ken Higgs, accounted for 91 of England's total of 355. Starting 86 behind England and Carew gone for naught, the West Indies' second innings had begun badly. Facing night on the fourth day, Hunt tried to stabilise the position, but he lasted only 10 minutes before being caught by Milburn at backward short leg off Knight for 13. In the next over, Higgs had Butcher in 2 minds, and with his next delivery he beat Butcher's bat to have him leg before wicket for 3. 25 for 3, and England heading straight for victory. The West Indians were under real pressure, and with accurate bowling, Jones was making Nurse struggle for every run. In the pre-lunch period, runs came very slowly, but by the time the score had reached 51 for 3, Nurse and Canhigh were finding form. At 91, Nurse was caught by Parkes off D'Oliveira for 35, and in came Sobers. Only 4 runs later, Parkes took his second catch and Knight his second wicket to send Canhigh back to the pavilion for 40. And so began that historic partnership between the captain and his young cousin David Holford that was to turn almost certain defeat into a moral victory for the West Indies. Coming together when their side was only 9 runs ahead, they faced a formidable task. For most of the afternoon, Cowdrey was happy to allow Sobers to take singles and an occasional 4 in an attempt to bring Holford to the striker's end. Sobers was superbly restrained and playing one of the greatest innings that any captain has ever made. As time went by, the two cousins gained in confidence, whilst the English bowlers lost much of their earlier venom. Garry Sobers was showing himself to be the finest all-rounder that the game has ever known. A century for Sobers, his 16th in Test cricket, a record for a West Indian. And so the fourth day passed into the fifth, with the score moving on from 250 towards 300. Indeed, Sobers started the last day by opening his shoulders and completely dominating the proceedings. Despite his 71, Holford looked somewhat suspect, and his rate of scoring was only half that of Sobers. But in the best of company, his latent potential became more and more obvious. Out of 295, the cousins had shared 200, the most valuable partnership the two West Indian cricketers had made at Lord's. Tired and with much of the fire gone from their attack, the England players looked more like spectators at a feast than participants. For them, the rain must have been a welcome respite. After the break, Sobers continued to rule the sea. For Holford, there was the prospect of his first Test century, and as so often is the case, those elusive runs were desperately difficult to find. At last they did come, and Holford had established himself as a full-blooded Test cricketer. For those followers of lovely cricket, here was yet another hero to acclaim. Five more runs by Holford, and Sobers decided it was time to declare and attack the tired and disillusioned England side. At 369 and with approximately 4.5 hours to go, the West Indies were 283 ahead. If England accepted the challenge of approximately a run a minute, then Sobers had a chance to get them out. With 4 slip fieldsmen and a gully, Hall gave everything he had, but the opening batsman refused to be stampeded. Griffith, too, bowled with great fury, and there were moments when the terrible twins looked like breaking through. Milburn held firm, but the rate of scoring wasn't fast enough. Against the pressure of Griffith's bowling, by 3 o'clock, Boycott had gone for 25 and Barrington for 5. Hall's bowling never fell behind in either speed or quality, and his reward came with the dismissal of Cowdrey for 5, and then with his very next ball, the free-scoring Parkes was clean bowled for a duck. And that's where the West Indies' hopes foundered. For Milburn was joined by Gravenham, and together they saw the day through. Milburn scored a century, and with an injured hand, Gravenham eventually made 30. And at 197 for 4, this match of ever-changing fortunes ended in a draw. Playing lovely cricket, the West Indians have more than proved themselves on the ground that has been the downfall of so many strong touring sides. With the first match won and the second drawn, Sobers and his men were to go on to victories at Nottingham and Leeds. True, the last test at the Oval was England's match, but the series had been decided by then, and the West Indians had shown themselves to be the cricketing champions of the world.